Here's are the one food that are still acceptable if you want to become like optimally healthy, which eggs. But the thing is, make sure it's like pasteurized eggs. Even though I will say it's not optimal, but it's still acceptable. Because optimally, if you want to really being optimal in your diet, you're only like consuming ruminant animals like flesh and fat. That's it. Okay, back to the topic. The acceptable foods, which basically eggs, it is because it has every single essential nutrients you need, such typically vitamin A, and also it's really rich in fat soluble vitamins, typically vitamin A, and also like all the B vitamins like biotin. But make sure cook the white part of the eggs, which the white part of the eggs, especially raw, have a four anti-nutrients. First is evident, which these bind the biotin vitamins, like B vitamins. Two is ovomucoid, overtransferrin, and overstatin. And these three can inhibit your enzyme to digest protein. Basically, when you're like consuming raw eggs, whole raw eggs, you're consuming raw egg yolk and also raw egg, the white part. Basically, it will lowering the bioavailable of the protein, which basically you just like absorb less protein. You're just lowering the bioavailable of it. So there's no reason for doing that. So basically, to counter that, I will say is cook the white parts sufficiently, but make sure uh, leave the egg yolk that are still running. So basically, you cook the white part. So basically, you mix the white part become solid, literally, from like like water texture from the raw egg white part to the solid. So that's mean you are cooked sufficiently. That's good. But be careful with the egg yolk. M- Make sure you are not overcook the egg yolk. You leave it still runny, which basically still watery. It is because egg yolk has a nutrients that are really sensitive to the heat, which basically they can reduce like the vitamin A and other nutrients, which basically there's no reason for doing that. Lowering the vitamin, like lowering the nutrition. There's no reason for doing that. So basically, cook the white part sufficiently so you can get rid of the anti-nutrients, but still leave the egg yolk running. And food quality is always like understated. It's really important. So if you like getting the eggs from the low quality from the farm factory, which basically they treat the chickens very bad. The hygiene was very bad. The fat, their diet, the chicken diet was very bad, which they are not adapted to. Chicken meant to adapt it to eating worms, bugs, which they are adapted to eating it. But factory farm, they're like giving them grain fats. They're giving them grains, which basically very high in linoleic acids. The problem with linoleic acid is when chicken is and you have to understand chicken is a monogastric animals. That means they cannot ferment the linoleic acid. They cannot ferment the grains. So basically, when they are like consuming grains, the linoleic acids, grains are really high in linoleic acids. And chicken was a monogastric animals. When they are like eating grains, which basically high in linoleic acid, they will store linoleic acid in their tissue. And same thing with their eggs too. Which basically when you are like consuming low quality chicken, you get high amount of linoleic acids. When you're like consuming low quality eggs, you're getting high amount of linoleic acids. And what's the problem with the linoleic acids? Our body have been adapted to eating lactic acid around like 2%, maximum is like 4%. Grass-fed beef has like 2%, and grain-fed beef has like 4%, which that's the maximum amount that our body can consume of like lactic acids. And too much of lactic acids, the problem is it can integrate it in your cell membrane, which basically they can easily oxidize by the sun. That's why you can easily getting sunburn, getting easily have a skin issue, skin cancer, because your skin has a lot of like lactic acids. And a lot of people say they're really scared to the sun because they can give you skin cancer, sunburn, whatever it is. The problem with that is it is because they have a high amount of lactic acid in their skin. And where do you can get the high amount of lactic acids? One is from the vegetable oil, seed oil, and also like from, even though it's olive oil, even though a lot of people say olive oil is really healthy, whatever it is, but still they are bit high in lactic acids, which like 15%, and seed oil can be like 70%, 70. It's very the gap between like 70 to 4% is crazy like high amount. This is why you are like so sensitive to the sun. And the thing is, you should not scare to the sun, because if you look at the solar spect sorry solar radiation spectrum, the sun in general, only 5% only ultraviolet. So basically we have 100%, right? 5% is like ultraviolet UV, which people scare of, and 40 to 42% is visible light, which basically can see the environment, and 53% is infrared, which red lights, which are very good for the skin. It regulates collagen and elastin in your skin, and also it helps lightening your environment, set your set your dopamine cycling, set your melatonin cycling, which helps your sleep. So a lot of people scare sun, which basically most of the sun is red light. It's very beneficial for our body. The things that people scare is ultraviolet, and yes, don't get me wrong, ultraviolet is still damaging, but the thing is, it's only have been proven damaging if like in isolation. That means you only getting like only UV rays, ultraviolet. So basically you only getting 100% of UV. That's been like proven damaging, but in isolation. But if you look at the sun, they are not just like having a only ultraviolet. They have like visible light. They have like infrared, which basically mostly is infrared, red light. So you should not worrying about the sun if you are not consuming high amount of like lactic acid in the diet, which can be found like low quality chicken, low quality eggs chicken, and also seed oil, vegetable oil, olive oil, and other things, right? So I mean that's it. This is the optimal. It's not optimal, but still acceptable. Which eggs? Cook the white part, leave the egg yolk runny, and also make sure you get the high quality eggs, pasteurized eggs, which basically, even though it's still a bit high in lactic acid, because chicken is a monogastric animal, so which basically they cannot like ferment the lactic acids, which basically they will store the lactic acid in their tissue, in their chicken tissue, which basically is not really super optimal, but still acceptable and very nutritious. Don't get me wrong, but the problem with that is leave the egg yolk runny, cook the white part, getting a high quality eggs. Because when you're getting a low quality eggs, you will just like having a high amount of like lactic acids, which can be like 15%, 14%, which still a bit high than we are adapted to, which can you sensitive to the sun. easily oxidize, sunburn, skin issue. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Peace. If your goal is to being attractive, it's literally you have to being healthy first. It is because you want to fix your skin issues, you want to fix your body fat. It just all relies on the diet mostly. And it is because if you have a lot of problems, for example, is you want to trying to eat carnivore diet, but the thing is your parents like against you. They say cholesterol is really bad. They say that saturated is really bad. Even though there's a new study that shows that it's really crucial and it is essential and there's no problem in high amount. So all the problems I will solve there, and all my nutrition guide I will support you. Link the description below where I have a guide that teach you all the knowledge you need and also solve all the problems which basically that hinder your goals to achieve the to being optimally healthy in the diet. So link in the description below.